What parenting trend you strongly disagree with? My neighbor's daughter is a crunchy mom wannabe influencer. Daughter will not allow adjectives to be used when speaking with her toddler or baby. They are supposed to discover descriptive words through exploration of their environment. I'm sort of unclear on how they are supposed to discover words that are never spoken, like colors or size or shape. I'm not sure I understand what this means exactly. You can say hand me the ball. You cannot say hand me the red ball. You can say look at the dinosaur, you cannot say look at the big dinosaur. You can say look at the water running in the gutter. You cannot say look at the water running quickly in the gutter. As someone who is pursuing a career in speech-language pathology, that is absolutely not okay. Children learn by listening to the people around them, and eventually assimilating the words they hear to the object idea. If you don't use language around your child, they won't develop that language. So the poor thing will end up with delayed speech patterns. My parents are immigrants and they did not start to learn English until their 20s, shortly before I was born. As a child I was a voracious reader many grade levels ahead of my peers. Young elementary-aged me enjoyed reading adult novels and the encyclopedia for fun. As a consequence, my vocabulary was as much larger than my parents' vocabulary. This often led to embarrassing moments where I would mispronounce a word I understood the meaning of, but had never heard spoken aloud. This made me insecure, and I avoided speaking up in class all throughout elementary and middle school. I can only imagine how disastrous it would be to have a parent intentionally use a limited vocabulary with a child. Especially from a very young age when the foundations of language are developing. This exactly the kind of trendy parenting I came in here looking for and not just the old-fashioned examples getting all the awards. Posting videos of your autistic kid having a meltdown or just as a prop for likes. My sister-in-law pre-0 occupies her kid, and has since birthed with a tablet. He is now 12 and has no friends and zero interpersonal skills. He takes his iPad to dinner, to grandma's, to church and never talks to anyone. It's very sad to see. My wife and I are basically neighborhood pariahs because we allow our children to ride their bikes around our quiet, low-crime suburban town. I've had a parent flat out tell me he won't allow his son to come over without him because I might do something crazy like let them shoot hoops on the basketball net out front without standing there watching them. Children need a little bit of freedom. You can't be expected to make grown-up decisions when you never had the opportunity to make child decisions. When my daughter was 8, I let her walk alone to her friend's house 2 blocks down the street. A random lady saw her on the sidewalk and called the cops about it, then stopped my daughter on the sidewalk and wouldn't let her go the last 60 feet to her friend's house. I was watching from the porch and went up as soon as the lady stopped. She then tried to insist that the cops arrest me for child endangerment as soon as they showed up. I live in a small town in Montana. People are effing stupid. My best friend's mother did that. I was an almost straight A student in school, especially in maths and related subjects. My friend wasn't. In any subject. Didn't help that his mother insisted he be sent to a gymnasium instead of a normal secondary school. He managed, but barely and only with a lot of help, but failed his A-levels. His mother constantly compared him with me. She called him a failure when he got bad grades but refused to help him study. It absolutely destroyed his confidence and self-esteem and made the problem worse. He found a trade he loves, is still learning and is doing well. We still meet regularly. His and his siblings' relationship with their mother is awful. Disciplining children based on what other parents are doing. What works for one kid won't work for others. Frick man, I can't even discipline my kids based on what works on their sibling lol. Boy was that a hard lesson when my kids were younger. What worked for one most definitely did not work for the other. One found it torturous to be separated from the action, time out in bedroom, while the other would be like, wahoo. Alone time. Extremely strict rules in general. I had a childhood friend that came over after school once and he said he had to be home by 6. Didn't think much of it, so we lost track of time playing games. He lived about a 10-minute walk up the street and he noticed it was 5:52, then started freaking out. My dad's gonna kill me if I'm late. I tried saying he wouldn't care. About 2 minutes the next day in school my friend said he wasn't allowed over my house anymore, and I never hung out with him again, all over this kid being 2 minutes late getting home. I don't think I would have thought of it when I was a kid, but reading a situation like this now, it just screams abuse of some kind. I cried when I got a B in PE in like 8th grade. I knew that was going to make my life hell. Yes, I caught an ass beating for that, even though it was obvious that I wasn't the most athletic of kids. I've forgiven my mother, but I will never be able to forget. I lived the same life. And it was horrid. I also had a much earlier curfew than everyone I knew, even when I was 16 and 17. It was humiliating to have to fly home as fast as I could before 9 p.m. on a Saturday night at 17 just to hope I wouldn't lose too many days of friends and any bit of life I could get. Ugh, that's wretched. It's the combination of humiliation and fear of punishment. Some people don't know how to parent effectively, so they just use fear. Now I have my own munchkins and I have a great big list of how not to parent in my head, at least. My parents were always pretty reasonable and I never had a curfew growing up. I told my parents where I would be and what time I would be home. If I was going to be late, I had to call them and let them know, which I did without fail. My aunt, on the other hand, was extremely strict about curfews and literally everything else. Guess whose kid mostly stayed out of trouble and followed the rule, and whose kid spent high school sneaking out, getting drunk, smoking, and just generally breaking the rules? My parents treated me like a responsible person and I acted like one and didn't abuse their trust. My aunt tried to control every aspect of my cousins' lives and they rebelled hard, whereas I never had a reason to rebel. My dad was like this. I walked through the door 1 minute late and I wasn't allowed out again. That was probably the second time I went out on my own. I wasn't allowed out until I was 12. Our approach with our daughters is almost the opposite of that. It can be summed up as, there's no shame in finding something difficult when you're starting to learn it, and most people are not very good at most skills to begin with. What we don't accept is giving up on something important because you find it difficult. Even if you fail forever, that's okay, but we still expect you to keep trying. My father-in-law made sure his daughters, my sisters-in-law, never had to experience a single consequence or reaction for their mistakes. They are adults in their late 20s now and both cannot handle the slightest gust of wind. They are very immature and developmentally arrested. One of them has never worked or paid a bill, and this is not a rich family. My parents did this. Everything wrong my siblings or I ever did had a valid excuse. He swore? That's because he grew up in a bad neighborhood, it's just a phase, it's not his fault, etc. Looking back now it seems insane. I catch myself thinking I did that as a kid? That's so messed up. Why didn't my parents say anything? I think I turned out fine after some mishaps I'm not too proud of. But I think most of that was learned when I was living on campus for while going to college. My 9-year-old left a big project until 9:30 before the night it was due, despite me asking multiple times if he had homework during the weekend, and came to me crying and wanting to finish it. I said absolutely not. He had school the next day, he wouldn't do a good job because he would be rushing and he was upset and tired. But the most important thing is that I told him he had to tell his teacher the truth and that he had to own the fact that he neglected his work and would take the consequences whatever they may be. I knew they wouldn't be harsh, he's in grade 4 and his teacher is pretty lax. But he's been a lot better about being honest about schoolwork after that. I helped him finish the project the next day after school and it was a good thing I made him wait cause it took almost 2 hours. And one of those children, and yeah, was like a brick to the face when I had to start making decisions on my own. My little sister is like this. She just turned 30 and is terrified to make any decisions on her own in case it's the wrong one. She's learned a lot from others' mistakes, including mine, but there is something about making your own mistakes that helps you learn and grow as a person. No one likes making mistakes, but I do believe they are an integral part of life. She doesn't think she is perfect or above mistakes, she just literally does not want to make any wrong moves in life. My parents did this and now I break down at the slightest effed up. PLS, let your kid make their own mistakes. I am so far beyond a perfectionist now and it has borderline ruined my life and self-esteem. Putting your kids in as many programs as possible. Assuming that it's your job to help them find their thing so they can be happy and successful in life. I think it just makes kids overbusy, stressed, unable to explore freely in downtime, not know what to do with stillness. Recording your children when you punish them. That's private, not for the public. Anything posted on the internet lasts forever. And children are cruel, wait until at school see. They will carry that their entire lives. The cyberbullying was coming from inside the house. My parents would always publicly gloat and brag to other family and friends about punishments or other humiliating moments from when I was this is before the social media wave. I still remember the way they bragged about it, and it still makes me angry looking back. That's not even a tenth of how humiliating it must be when social media is involved. I beat them so hard I broke my something. Disgusting. Oh, for me it was worse than that. It was point and laughing and getting the whole extended family dinner laughing at it. I would rather get my hide tanned than have been forced to sit through a family Christmas getting ridiculed about my latest punishment. Letting your kids scream and jump around the restaurant while pretending it's not going on. They're not hurting anything, just ignore them. Ma'am, I'm not asking for a perfectly behaved child, but I would at least like to eat in peace. In Las Vegas, some shows are free for children under age 6 or such. So parents bring their babies to Celine Dion's show and let the poor kids wail. It's sad to see a toddler that should be in bed instead have a meltdown with her little hands covering her ears from the noise while her parents ignore her. Then there's the poor saps seated next to these idiots who've just paid several $100s to hear a child scream. It seems cruel, at least to me, to intentionally put children into situations that are by nature not child-friendly. Yeah, that's completely gross for sure. Also, building on your point, I see so many Facebook moms handing out way too much info about their young children. Like when and where they go to school, the doctors, their names and birthdays and addresses, tagging their daycare at the times they're there, etc. Is it only me that thinks this is playing with fire? It's one thing to upload family photos and basic info like first names, but there's been twice now when I've spoken up to someone because they've put their kid's address and nursery schedule online. We went from don't put your kids' initials on their backpacks because strangers might be able to guess their name and kidnap them to post absolutely everything about your kid so anyone with 5 minutes could write an entire biography and map. Last year I taught my son about risk versus reward. He always raced down the hill from school and it made me nervous because the sidewalk has big cracks in it and some of the pieces stick up a little bit. I told him I don't want him to run because I'm afraid he'll fall, but it's up to him. Is the reward of running worth the risk of falling? He decided it was, and one day he walked in, sobbing, because he had fallen and hurt himself. Once I had comforted him and cleaned him up, I asked if it was worth it and he said yes, lol. It reminds me of when we were trying to teach our son not to be pushy, to just be nice. He and his little sister would fight to get in line first to kiss daddy bye at the door. Once when he started pushing her, we made him wait. So he ran off to his room crying. When he came out, my husband asked, "Did you learn anything?" He sniffled and said yes. "What did you learn?" Husband prodded. Boy wiped his nose and said, "I don't know, but I learned a lot." Facepalm. He's trying his best, haha. Not related to the comment, but I want to say how adorable it is that your kids love their dad so much that they fight over who gets to greet him first. Mine is almost 21 and I'm still asking the question, and still getting the yes. But it's because he's already asked himself, said yes, and is letting me know where he will be and what he'll be doing. He leaves for a month-long adventure in Norway in 17 days. Couldn't be more excited for him. And still as scared as when he was 3 and decided to climb over the top of the covered slide. I'll never stop worrying about him, will I? Nope. But the worry gets tempered with the joy of seeing him take wise risks, chase his dreams instead of sit around waiting for someone to give him his wildest wishes, and the knowledge that if anything does go sideways, he'll never be afraid to ask you for help, or just call you and laugh when things go a little sideways. Hug. 15 years ago I worked in a community college that attracted a lot of students who were previously homeschooled. One 18-plus-year-old student enrolled, and so did his mother, in all of the same classes. I was standing in the cafeteria waiting for a salad to be made for me, and the kid was staring at the menu board deciding what to choose when his mother ran in, admonished him for not waiting for her after class, and then proceeded to order for him. At some later point in the semester she came to the window and was trying to do something for him. I asked if he was a minor and she said no, but that he was her son and she made the decisions for him. I had to inform her that I had to speak directly with him and not her. His mother lost it at me, ranting and raving about how she paid the bills, etc. I hope he was able to finally move on from her controlling helicopter ways, although, I'm sure she wouldn't allow that. Poor kid. I knew a family like that. The mother has died, the kid is over 40 and completely non-functional. I teach kindergarten and I had a kid not know how to walk downstairs because he would cry that it is hard, so his parents just carried him down for 5 years. And then sent him to school to a 3-story building. I'm not carrying him, but it was a month of tears in front of his peers, embarrassing him. Probably a good idea to have his eyes checked too. My oldest suddenly started to panic on stairs at age 7. She needed glasses and was having vertigo issues. I kind of see a trend in parents going full helicopter or full oblivious/no boundaries. It is all about finding the correct amount of middle ground so a kid can learn about what they can and cannot do while also being respectful and kind to others. You can't be an overprotective helicopter parent constantly telling your kid to be careful. Be careful doesn't mean much. Telling a 3-year-old to hold the rail when you go up is a better instruction. On the other hand, you can't allow your kids to run free being complete feral lunatics. Allowing a 6-year-old to run to a playground by himself, then run full speed around a playground, knocking over smaller kids without saying anything isn't teaching them anything. Amado Joy want to let my kids learn but also worry about them. And that's completely normal. One time a while ago my mom once sat me down and talked to me about this. She said that she always worried something bad would happen to us kids, and that our dad was better about managing it than her, but what stuck with me was this, she said worry is like a rocking chair. You keep moving and moving and moving, but you won't get anywhere. Even though she tried to avoid showing it for our sake, she was in truth always concerned about it. You're a good parent for being wary, but don't let worry take control. My mom learned not to worry too much because she found that you could worry all the time and still not have it be enough because you were still most likely going to be caught off guard by bad news. As an example, a friend dropped me off at the airport to go home and asked me to call him when I landed so he knew I was safe. When I got home I told my mom about it and made a crack that my friend must care about me more than her because she never asks me to do that when I fly. She said, I just figure if something happens to the plane I'll hear about it. I was a kindergarten teacher for years. Most other teachers wanted certain playground equipment off limits for the little ones, saying it's too high. They'll get hurt. But here's the thing. The kids' inevitability self-limited. Only the kids with good balance and climbing skills would try the higher bars, while the more uncertain ones would stay below. Then those kids would slowly build skills and try the more challenging parts as they felt comfortable. Let them play. For me it's the long letters written to their kid posted on their Facebook on their birthdays or whatever. Like if this is genuinely for your kid, write it to them with pen and paper or read it to them instead of sharing on FB. It's obviously about your ego. Edit, emails to your kid works too, as PPL have pointed out. Way better than grandstanding on Facebook. As someone whose parents divorced just before my undergraduate graduation, it has turned into a game of digs at the other parent that I am just a pawn in. Every birthday, significant life event, and holiday there is some kind of Facebook post that just shows how great and loving and happy our family is without the other parent. Then you go to the other's house and do it all again. Parents who give their children the silent treatment, going hours, days, or longer without speaking, making the children feel guilty, ashamed, and confused about what the real problem is instead of dealing with it openly and forthrightly. My mom did this. I remember being so terrified and confused that it made me nauseated. She also used to ignore my crying, or send me to my room when I'd cry. Doesn't matter why I was crying, she didn't want to hear it or deal with it. I learned how to not make a sound while I cried and to pretend I was happy from a very young age. To this day I feel major anxiety getting emotional in front of others. The saddest part is even while silently sobbing all I ever wanted was for someone to catch me and give me a hug. Yeah, this messed me up to this day. I still question everything I do and feel guilty for almost anything. Yeah, this messed me up to this day. I still question everything I do and feel guilty for almost anything. My mom punished me by giving me the silent treatment. I knew she loved me and all that, but she would go hours without talking to me if I disobeyed or talked back. As I got older and started leaving the house for dates or to go to a friend's house, she would refuse to say she loved me if she was in a bad mood. This instilled in me a very needy presence when I got into disagreements with people. Hell, it took me until a few years ago to understand that her behavior was wrong. I'm now 27 and it's gotten better, but I still have slight anxiety if my boyfriend or friends get super quiet during/after an argument. My parents sometimes did this. Now as an adult I find it really hard sometimes to communicate my feelings and I bottle things in. Never had open communication growing up. It was either silent treatment or yelling. No conversation where I got to say my piece. Destruction of a child's property. I recognize that most videos of generic angry parent smashing a child's gaming console, or whatever, are staged. But not all of them are. And most real incidents are never recorded. If your child requires discipline, you give them a timeout, ground them, temporarily revoke their privileges, assign them extra chores or whatever. But you never destroy their possessions. Their property may not mean much to you. But it means a lot to them. Destroying it because you don't know how to manage your temper is wrong in every possible way. If you do that, then you're a bad parent and I judge you for it. Emo. When parents do this, it's because they view the child and everything that belongs to the child as theirs. Growing up, my parents always made it clear that everything I had was theirs and could be taken away. Allowing your child to watch screens, tablets/phones, with loud sounds and no headphones on public transport. WTF. Adults are doing this. Every day I see people walking and taking a phone call or FaceTime on speakerphone. It's crazy. These people are often obnoxious, too. It's one thing to take a call, but speakerphone? Come on. And they're usually so loud. I appreciate that someone may need to speak up on transport because of background noise, but they practically shout unnecessarily. I can still hear them while wearing headphones with the volume turned up. It drives me insane. Not saying no to your children. I don't understand the logic. Setting behavioral boundaries and maintaining those boundaries through black and white logic makes perfect sense to me. This for me too. My boyfriend's 10-year-old niece is never told no. Both her parents and grandparents let her do whatever she wants, and then act shocked when she misbehaves. But if they say no, they'll crush her creative spirit. I'm terrified for what that girl will be like when she gets older. She's already immensely entitled, and it will only get worse from here. I feel like this is one of those parenting methods that has gotten completely taken out of context and turned into something terrible. Saying no less is actually very effective. Not saying no. The one gift policy for birthdays. I saw someone on Reddit the other day ask another Redditor if they even raised kids because the other Redditor didn't agree with giving their child's sibling a gift on their birthday so they wouldn't throw a fit. They even argued that it wasn't appeasement because you only do it for a few years. The only thing that does is teach your child that they're entitled to a gift on someone else's birthday. I have 3 kids, and my youngest 2 are twins. They were born the week before Christmas, and for the first few years it was very difficult for my oldest to wrap her head around the fact that it seemed like they got more presents than her that month. Each year, we would patiently explain to her that their birthday was a day to celebrate them, and they didn't get gifts for her birthday in September. It took her a few years to understand, but we never appeased her with an extra gift on their day. It was a lesson she had to learn, and now that all of them are older, they all love celebrating each other's birthdays. Greater than. My ex-husband was a Christmas baby and he described being resentful that all the other kids, huge immediate family, got to open presents on his birthday and he couldn't open any on their birthdays. Made worse by relatives that combined birthday and Christmas gifts for him. His parents really tried though. Tried to have a B-Day party before or after Christmas, but in his child mind he could only see 2 events close together and not the special random day the other kids got. It's really hard. We definitely try our best to separate it from Christmas celebrations, and it doesn't help that they're twins. We have to remind a lot of family that the girls don't want a combined gift, they have different interests. I even go as far as making them each their own smaller specialized birthday desserts. I'm a baker by trade, instead of making them share one big one. Mothers tell their kids, especially daughters, if he bullies you, he likes you. My parents did it on me and my first boyfriend cheated and dumped me. Yep. When I was in middle school, a boy threw a pen and hit me right below my eye and it left a mark. When I went home and told my mom, we went to the school and she talked to whoever, principal/counselor, and their response was, he probably likes you. Okay, cool. That doesn't give him permission to hurt me. As a father of a 10-year-old daughter, the biggest challenge I have right now is how to contain the bullying. Most of the time I want to go to the school and slap the shit out of the kid myself or tell my daughter to, but Simon. That ain't the solution and I'm an adult. Lol. I can contact the school, but they don't do shit. They're seriously useless when it comes to this shit. I cannot stress this enough. Schools are useless when it comes to bullying. They won't even give you the decency to call you back if you have to leave a message. Next step is finding out who the kid's parents are and going straight to them. You'd think the system would have somewhat of a grip on this by now, but it seems like they haven't even begun. That ain't the solution, it is though, and these days schools are doing their damnedest to make sure it's the only solution. Victims have to teach their bullies to back off because nobody else will teach your daughter to defend herself. When she's grown up, the suspension she'll earn for standing up for herself will be forgotten. The fact that the bullying stopped will not be. Do not go to the bully's parents unless you're 100% certain they're willing and able to discipline their kids. If they take the bully's side, nothing will change, and if they punish the bully without putting a long-term plan in place, it will make the bullying worse. Physically fighting back was literally the only thing that ever stopped someone from bullying me, and I wish that I had been put into karate instead of my parents telling me to ignore them. It's still the same as it was 30 years ago. It's so pathetic. I don't believe that school staff actually give a shit about bullying. They didn't seem to when I was in school, and they certainly don't seem to care now when my baby brother is being told to kill himself and believing he should, at 11. My God. Takes more effort than I'd like to keep myself from going down to his school to deal with those kids myself.
Consider subscribing this video if you enjoyed and wish to see more. Thanks for watching.